'66, we were in our room. That night was the first night my brother and I really experienced it. We had bunk beds. He was on the top bunk. I was on the bottom. And the first thing that we saw was like an orb or we had seen in our room a few nights beforehand. And it was like an energy that came with it, almost like I've mentioned this before, that this feeling that you sense before anything happens. It's almost like having 3 moons. You know, when you have a full moon out, you can spend an extra few hours out at night, or you have this extra energy, you want to do something, but it's not like an anxiety or a nervousness. It's just an energy. And later on, after time has gone on, we've recognized this energy. We had seen this orb about the size of a small coffee cup plate, and it went along the back wall, and it kind of came forward on the south wall, and it came up towards our bunk beds near the door to the bedroom. You know, I would close my eyes, open it, and, you know, thinking it was going away. I had this weird feeling that it was kind of, you know, watching me for some reason. But that was really the first thing my brother and I really ever experienced. And then shortly afterwards was the first night, which is the one that's embedded itself in my mind ever since. We were going to bed about, I went to bed early. My brother, even though he didn't go to school, I had to walk a long ways to the bus stop because we had this farm and I had to walk down this dirt road to get to the main road. So I went to bed relatively early. And it was we went to bed around 9 o'clock, and this was probably about an hour later. I just basically was falling asleep, and there were these flashes of light outside our window, almost like lightning. I don't know, the next thing I really remember, I was at the top of my stairs. There were 2 beings that looked like they were illuminated, like with a 5-watt bulb, or just, it was almost ghostly. And then a second later, I was at the top of this field in the backyard, which is past our pasture or our horse barn, and my brother was with me, and we were met by several, maybe 5 or 6 different beings, all looking exactly alike. And we walked along the top of the field, the line of our property where the trees were, and went into southeast corner of our property line. And there was a huge boulder there that my brother and I we went on later on, but I remember seeing that boulder. And when I say boulder, it was about 8 to 10 feet high and about 5 or 6 feet wide. And that was really how I knew where we were later on when I went up to find the spot. I walked by this area, and it was a campsite there. It looked like the Appalachian Trail used to run up that side of our property, and we used to get a lot of people camping there. So we recognized that. Just further, maybe, 20 feet past that, there was an opening. I walked up to this opening. I was actually first in line, and I don't know why I was leading the way here, but I was. And I got to this opening, and I saw what looked like a big pile of dirt, really, is how I've referenced it. Just this huge mound is what it looked like. It was dark, but you could see a little bit. And so I stopped. I was looking behind a lot to check on my brother. It was kind of really weird. And I saw this other being at about, if this was a ruler, I came onto this mound of dirt, which actually was the craft itself, at about the 6-inch mark. And there was a being about the 10-inch mark right outside the craft itself. And I looked behind me and checked on my brother again, and they were all there. And then shortly afterwards, they were gone, and I was out there by myself with this other individual, E.T., if you will. And I wasn't sure really what to do. I was just standing there, and it seemed like for a long time. And I was like, I felt like I was, I guess, being summoned in some way, or it was going to be okay to go. So I started walking towards it nervously. The closer I got, actually, the calmer I felt. It was kind of like really hesitant at first, but I started to walk, and I felt it was going to be okay, and I got within 2 or 3 feet of him, or it, and I just had this overwhelming feeling that everything was I was okay. It wasn't in danger or anything. And he slowly raised his right hand, placed it on the center of his chest. The next thing I remember, I was inside this hallway area, and my brother was about 5 feet in front of me. He had an ET, if you will. I'll refer to them as ETs. I don't know what they are. I was standing next to him. All I saw was him and the ET at first, and then I realized that I had one next to me on my left side. And something to note is everything from here on out, basically, they're always on your left. So he was behind me a little bit, just to my left shoulder. My brother was not moving anywhere. He was staying there, and they took me around, or he took me around my brother. I went to the right side of him, walked past him, went down this hallway, which actually turned to the left slightly. It was almost as if it followed the contour of the outside of the craft, which now I think was probably towards the outer lip of it. And I came into this area. First, the hallway was lit up basically like a glow stick. Everything illuminated slightly. Not really bright, but everything had its own light to it. It generated its own light. When I got to the end of this hallway, I stood at this entrance area to this large room. There was another being, again, on the left, and the one that had walked me down there or walked with me had gone back and had kind of like handed me off, and this individual was to my left, and I stepped just basically inside of this larger room, which was almost, if you had a donut, if you cut the donut into thirds, there was a top third of it. And the way it looks now when I draw it out, there was an individual, an ET, at about 3 o'clock, one at about 9 o'clock, and one at about 11 or 10 or 11 o'clock up front. And it was very dark, this room. It was almost like a black metallic. There was a table in front of me with this individual at, like, when I say 3 o'clock, it was about 10 or 15 feet in front of me. The same table, almost what looked to be identical, on the left side at like 9 o'clock, and they were, and it said they were bronze, like a brownish bronze pop to it. They had almost looked like Braille, raised images or feel to it, and there was one standing at each one. And I looked behind me, and I could still see my brother at the very end of the hallway, and then he was taken out of sight. I remember, where's my brother? And I got touched on my left shoulder. And there was this big shot of like a galaxy or stars and planets. And it formed the shape of a boot or a sneaker. I remember that distinctively. I used to wear Converse All-Stars, so this was like, we referenced it as my sneaker. At the time, we had a black and white television, so this was incredible. Next thing I was shown was a huge willow tree, which made no sense to me at all, like a body of water and a little, a craft in it, and I wasn't sure what it was or why they were showing me this at all, but it was massive. It filled almost the entire part of the walls that I was surrounded by, pretty much. It was like a greenish, goldish, and light coming through it, and it was just beautiful, actually. I couldn't understand why this was being shown to me, and it's not like I could communicate at all. I was not sure if they were understanding me or I couldn't understand them really, but it was almost like they were trying to tell me something. There wasn't any English going back and forth or anything like that. It was just an image that they think they wanted me to remember, I guess, for some reason. To this day, I've drawn it out, and I sketched it out at a very young age, probably maybe a year or so after that. I still have it today. But that was really what happened the very first time with my brother and I. It wasn't really anything but this weird little intro. Maybe more happened than that. I don't remember anything more than that, but that was it. I got up the next morning and went to school, and about, I don't know, maybe a few days later, maybe the next day, I don't really remember, it was shortly afterwards, I took my horse and Thunder, and I rode up and found that boulder, and the rush was very low. I remember I had to duck under my horse's mane to get past this area, and there was that area where it was, and I knew exactly where it was, and remembered parts of it vividly. Whether I remember all of it, no, I don't. But that was 66.